I am so incredibly honored to introduce our speaker for today, our candidate to be our next senior minister and a truly amazing human being, Reverend John Odden. Reverend John has had a deep and successful career in helping businesses solve problems, live beyond their edges, and find new ways of doing things that break old boundaries. He also invites them to grow in their compassion and provide greater service to those that often fall through the cracks. In 2015, he became a practitioner emeritus, which means he had already served as a practitioner for 20 years. He felt the call to complete the ministerial training and education at Holmes Institute after doing volunteer work, providing spiritual care at a Catholic hospital. He has been serving as the assistant minister in Orange County, California, and thankfully for us, he has now been drawn to more fully express his spiritual calling by becoming a senior minister. Reverend John recognizes the unique place that the teachings of science of mind have in creating a world that works for everyone. As I've listened to him, I believe that his vision calls us each to accept our magnificence, to utilize all the skills and talents and resources that we have available to us so that we can live up to what we say here each week, that our consciousness, and I think he would add our acts of service, help make the world a better place. Please join me in welcoming Reverend John Odden.
Good morning, Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living. It's just a delight and an honor to be here today, and welcome to all of you who are here with us as we're at a time of coming back together, as well as all of you who are out there joining that beautiful electronic streaming, the love streaming that Raj and the team have so magnificently crafted. It's a huge gift. I have actually got a prop that I may use in my talk, depending, and I'm going to stick to the allotted time somewhat. And though I did bring this prop, and the particular reason I will hold it up here before I pull out my notes with a few citations is that as I was asking my wife Joan what this was, I was kind of reading on here thinking like, do we have a crystal ball? Like this says, hello, sunshine, and we had no idea what the weatherman would bring in all of this amazing sunshine that we're enjoying these days. Oh my. So, free your mind and the rest will follow. Here we are in the third week of being pulled by vision. And as much as a team of people came together and crafted the 3 weeks and some titles within which I'm pouring my heart and my thoughts that I think might be interesting to all of us in imagining what do we do at this moment and how do we do it for the best. In some ways, I think that, free your mind could have also been the very first thing. Because to me, as I look back at my life, freeing my mind was the thing that allowed me to pursue opportunities and relationships and development of myself that was beyond what I ever would have imagined. I grew up in a world where somewhat there were answers for me. And I experienced a time of growing up as a young fellow chafing against the answers. And then finally, when I bumped into this particular teaching and the notion that we can free our mind, that there's tools we can use, contemplation, meditation, treatment, and we can find our own answers, I started noticing the world around me changing. the people I met, the opportunities, and even the way I responded to what happened in life began to shift by me for the better. I don't know how many of you have experienced Science of Mind that way, but that's one reason for me, after I walked into a Center for Spiritual Living in Huntington Beach oh so long ago and heard astounding music, that I remember that when I hear Rick and Shemaine today. I also found my heart touched by an approach to wisdom and knowledge that was different than what I'd known before. And I found that it wasn't a joke. My heart became accessible. My sense of being able to look into the world and appreciate beauty and possibility increased, and I could feel it happening. And that got me interested in how do I go deeper? How do I learn more? You know, freeing our minds, if we just step back and we think about the world today and the stuff that is going on and this disruptive time we've had and what it looks like to think about reconvening, whether we're going to return to what we were doing or whether there's an opportunity to do different, do more, do better. Freeing our minds, which is something that to me is an ongoing kind of a life opportunity. How do I free my mind from what I thought had to be and consider, could something really cool be possible? It's not automatic. It's not easy. I'd like to just go and bring something from ancient wisdom in Paul's letter to the Romans in chapter 8, verses 1 and 2, where he gave us, "Therefore there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, because through Christ Jesus, the law of Spirit who gives life has set you free from the law of sin and death." So now what did this mean? As I take it, Christ's consciousness is that capacity to be being born into knowing that my mind, my heart, and my spirit are free. And I have this function of choice. You don't have to exercise choice, and I think just like any muscle that's not used, choice can wither. But if we find a way to practice choice compassionately, artfully, and have our mind free to really contemplate the possibilities, and that becomes strong, then we can live a dynamic life from any place we're starting. And where do we start? Where do I start? Where do any of us start? Just right where you are right now. So what could that be like? You know, what does it mean to imagine being free to choose, really free, being able to imagine creative possibilities, being open in a prayerful way to resources and abundance being available to do things? What does that mean about the boundaries of my happiness? The happiness for me and my loved ones, for my community, for the region around me. You know, has anyone experienced this pandemic disruption is bringing some frustrations and a little bit of angst now and then? If you've noticed any of that, this idea of returning to our core, our roots, our principles, and looking at, can I be free from that? And can I imagine a pivot and a different opportunity? What can that mean? Because really, basic science of mind, as I experienced it way back then, as I've gone through it over and over again, every time I've studied the principles, it's about practicing life in creativity and coming up sometimes with wacky ideas that are just fun and silly, or being playful or being appreciative, the kinds of things that come forward when we hear the special music. And, you know, we know our hearts respond, our soul can fly with this. And also, we've got the opportunity, we'll have a prayer wall later where the practitioners will be up here and you can unburden a concern to the word of a practitioner, because treatment and meditation can be useful when things get tough, to calm our mind. And, has anyone over the past 12 to 18 months needed a little calm, a little more calm now and then? Yeah. I know I have, and I've gone to that. And I would also say that to the extent I take the time to calm myself and take the time to be reflective on what's important to me, that also I'm noticing that I can start to see a bit more beauty. In fact, when people ask me, like, wow, you're a practitioner emeritus, and back in 2015 there was less of the color here, and people would say, how could you have possibly done this for this long? How does that work? The thing I would tell people, because it was my truth, what it was for me, is that when I went to some Science of Mind class, I then would go out in the world, and I would go to my workplace, and I'd be with friends and family, and people looked more beautiful. Wait a minute. It was like I went to a class, I did a little bit of study in this Science of Mind, I steeped in it a bit. However, you're doing it by coming here today, by love streaming with us. And then I would just try to be mindful, did anything change? At first I was wondering, will something change for me? I'm looking for that. I feel the same. And I still put on, the pants and button the shirt, and it's the same, John. I'm the same. But then I start looking at people, and I'm seeing that people are looking more beautiful. And I discovered a capacity as I freed my mind and kind of calmed myself down at times and cleared out some of the noise, that I could listen and I could hear beautiful stories from people that I hadn't heard before. And the caliber and nature of some of my relationships changed in a really good way. I think that's all really good stuff. And what it comes from is understanding that we move over into that domain of the spiritual, that Christ-like rebirth of consciousness that's available to any person, that it opens a different vista. And it's not like we have to get unshackled from that bondage, but it kind of melts away, if you will. And I'll have an example I'll share later, and I'm sure you'll be thinking of your own. And we'll do a little bit of sharing around that with the workshop opportunity after the service, if that calls to you. And also I noticed that it allowed me to be more aware of needs and opportunities for service and making a difference. Whether it's having a job or being a volunteer or serving as a practitioner or just walking down the street. The world is full of opportunities to make a difference, to add a smile to the world. And I found that I had more capacity, more awareness, and that was meaningful to me. I'd like to share a quote out of The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes as part of the general summary, where he's also talking about freedom. And what does he say? After all, we're thinking about freeing our mind. And if we free our mind, does the rest follow? Is this so? Ernest gave us, to assert our individuality is to rise above the law of averages and into that more highly specialized use of the law, which brings freedom rather than bondage, joy in the place of grief, and wholeness instead of sickness. So is it true that if I engage with divine law, with the universal principles, and I free my mind, I could be engaging differently with this new mindfulness? I could be moving into being more whole and having less of the other stuff. How could that work? If I'm open to the availability of spirit and wisdom, what could it look like? I asked about this bag because it wasn't the bag I expected Joan to bring on our trip. I expected her to bring a trash bag. Where we live back in Southern California, we're part of a group that's this, it's an international thing, Order the Sacred Earth, of people who are, doing things for the environment. And so they're out collecting trash at the beach. We have a thing we do in California, I'll admit it. We throw our garbage out to sea and it comes back. Figure that. And so down at this beautiful beach, volunteers go out and then pick up trash. And so they're picking up trash. And we figured, well, we're here in Salt Lake City, and what the heck? We'll pack a trash bag. It's light and easy. And we'll patrol around, and we'll pick up some trash and send a picture back that said, hey, we did some too. Not so successful. No. I don't know whether any of you would know that. And have any of you been out looking for trash in the neighborhood? Good luck. We couldn't find any around where we were. Now, yeah, we were near Temple Square, but even when you get a block or two away, there was no trash. And Joan actually passed a group of, like teenage kids and asked them about it. And they said, we're all raised to understand that we're proud of our city, and if we see something on the ground, we pick it up and throw it out. And there wasn't trash that missed the trash can. There wasn't trash behind the bush. There weren't no trash there. So, but then, I asked Joan about this bag, and she shared with me how she went down to do some patrolling around and get a bite of lunch before she joined us all here in the afternoon, and she passed homeless people reaching out for money, which is not her habit, to give money to those who are, I think it's called panhandling, like that. And so she noticed that there were a number of them in the stretch she walked in and was inspired. And it's not about Joan. I just keep telling her that I'm inspired by her because she's a good example of what's possible for me, for any of us, if we can free our mind, open our heart, and be aware of the needs in the world around us. And when we talk about a world that's open and works well and a community that embraces that, that's kind of what I imagine, that we're open, we're aware, and we do the things that make a difference. So she said, I went to the market, got ingredients for 24 sandwiches, made a couple dozen sandwiches of different kinds, and then I put them into the tool that I brought because I found that this is a helpful tool, and went out and handed out the sandwiches. And she also commented that she ran out and then came across a person who was really wanting money, and she was out of sandwiches, and the person had some attitude and anger, and nevertheless, she went out to a place and bought a sandwich and water and took that back and gave it to the person who was very grumpy and discarded the wrapper and whatnot, and it was kind of like that until she went down and picked up the wrapper and whatever the fellow discarded and put it in the trash, and the person softened up and said, "Thank you." So what does it mean to help people in need with some food? That's good. I mean, we participate in food banks and clothing drives where we live. But to me, the notice is that you can actually, at a personal level, if you can see the need and find a reasonable way to act, we can all make a difference. We can all lift the world a little bit. And to the extent there's a community like this of people who are leaning into that practice of raising and improving, to me, it's not about this community, it's not about Salt Lake City, it's about humanity at the end of a time of disruption. And what kind of word are we going to put out personally that might resonate beyond what we can possibly see or know and make a difference? And I believe it matters. I believe the tiny piece of trash matters. I believe those kids who said, we participate in keeping the city spotless. We all make a difference, friends. We all make a difference, and it's part of the divine work. A little bit more quickly as I start to wrap up, looking at Ernest Holmes speaking about the power of thought, where he gives us that the emphasis on true mental healing is insistently on God, the one mind, the one soul, the one being, ever present and ever available, and on man's ability and our right to make ourselves receptive to this healing presence, any act of kindness, a realization of the essential beauty of our own nature. That's all of us. The essential beauty of our own nature, and the truth that no evil can live in this presence. Own your beauty. The evil washes away. We must unify ourselves with the great whole, the man who dares to fling his thought out into universal intelligence with the assurance of one who reveals his divine nature and its relation to the universe and dares to claim all there is. And it can be just feeding someone who's hungry. That's plenty. Will find an ever-creative good at hand to aid him. God will honor his request. To the soul that knows its own divinity, all else must gravitate. You know, sometimes I've wondered, like these teachings and all, and like meditation and treatment, you know, like, do the principles work? After all, it doesn't seem like everyone is living this way. There's a lot of us here, and this is encouraging, but it's not everyone who's in tune with this thought necessarily. You can go out into the world and find the angry people and the hungry people, the people who've been dislodged, or you can read headlines about the companies are calling people back to work and what's happening. The Great Resignation, and the U.S. Department of Labor is documenting it. People quitting in record numbers. Well, you know, wasn't there a movie, Take This Job? And so you look at what's happening, and it's not all in this swim lane, but what about things gravitating of necessity? I kind of like that, because sometimes when I'm in a kind of a little discussion with people and they're saying, oh, no, it's like, I don't participate in that law. And I said, well, you know, if it's the law and it's like gravity, let's run an experiment. And I'll look at someone and I'll say, turn off your gravity or mine. And, you know, we've got a roof over our heads, it's safe, just so turn off gravity. All right. This is, yeah, there is stuff, there are laws, there are principles. There's like gravity, and we rely on gravity. Joan and I trusted an airplane that we'd get on, and that the airplane would have lift, and the gravity would be tugging on us, and it would balance out, and we would get back to Earth safely, and it worked quite well. And, you know, that's the thing. To the extent that there is law and that we do some exercise and discipline and attunement of ourselves to harmonize with the law, it's real like gravity. We can use it, whether it's to feed a friend or whatever it might be. So I would just ask you to join me in standing in that knowledge that as we free our mind, everything is ours and accessible. For truly all the gifts are divine. And as we melt into that divine heart that welcomes us and loves us, we can receive and share all that goodness. We can and are the essential difference. Spirit needs us, just as neighbors, friends, family, and community need us. And that's our divine appointment. And I say, yay, let's step into it and fill it now. And so it is. So at this point, let me see that I've got this right. I've got some instructions here to coach me. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I would like the practitioners to be coming forward. And we're going to have the prayer wall. And a little reminder here that since it's been a while, that we do have the 5 steps, and I'll get that started. And I want you to know that you can come forward and share a concern or request with a practitioner, not the whole story, a quick request. You'll get a word back. And whether it's peace in a relationship or relief from pain, the practitioner will offer the quickest prayer. So do line up to the top of the aisles, move forward, and practitioners are fully vaccinated, mask, not a mask, per your comfort. And just join me in knowing that there is spirit, that's all there is, the creation, the activation, the stuff. And that spirit throws through me, the practitioners, and each of us as the energy, the animation, and the thought, and that all of that flows into this moment as we speak our concern, our request, and we receive back the healing word. Please come forward if you wish. I know that peace and assurance is ours. Divine infinite spirit listens with a full and compassionate heart at this moment, at every moment. As prayer is offered, Spirit answers. I'm so thankful. So very thankful to know the principles, to know Spirit, to know the power and the effect of treatment. And it's such an honor to walk in a world where people who care and love are strong among us. Truly, I know that that is the greatest of gifts, and that all of these requests are fulfilled, that every heart with an ache or a need is answered. That as we soften and open our heart, answers and fulfillment are available. It is the divine work, blessed and in motion now, and so it is.